everyone, welcome back. We're here, we're doing another beautiful painting here. We're going to create a gorgeous landscape painting slash seascape painting. We're going to have some water in here. We're going to have beautiful sailboat over here, trees. We're going to have nice buildings over here, houses along the water, and distant sailboats over here, and more bushes and trees. And then we're going to have a beautiful tree in the foreground here with lots of interesting branches and twigs and things to set the whole scene back. So we're going to learn a lot of interesting things, how to mix all your colors here ahead of time, so that when you go into paint your painting, you're not worrying about mixing colors. You'll mix them ahead of time, and then you'll just take them and put them right into your painting, and you won't have to worry and sweat over did you mix the right color, or are the colors mixed correctly. And this is the glazing technique, of course. So remember, with the glazing technique, we're going to create a light wash across the whole painting first. Let that dry 100%, and then we come in and we do our darker washes with our buildings and our sailboat and our land here in the foreground and our tree over here on the right-hand side. So you'll see how we do this step by step, the whole painting. Take your time, watch it, enjoy it. Take some notes if you like. If not, you just memorize what you have to memorize. You can always go back to and watch it again if you have to. And you'll have fun. I know you will. And this is, again, a real step-by-step approach of watercolor. And we do, on this channel, a real thorough step-by-step approach to watercolor so that you kind of get all the details you need to create a beautiful painting like this. And if I zoom out a little bit, you can see it's a little bit, I zoomed in a little bit for the details, but you can see it's a little bit of a larger painting, like that. And then we can zoom in. And you can always zoom into a painting too. If you wanted to paint just that much of the painting, you could do that too. So you can zoom in and zoom out like a photographer would. Photographers and people that create video and photography, they always constantly think about cropping in and cropping out when they're creating photography and film, movies, and so forth. So you can think of it the same way as an artist, as a watercolor artist. You can zoom back if you want and do this whole scene. If you want to simplify it, you can just zoom right in and just do that much of the painting. So it's totally up to you. You can hit pause right now and then draw and paint from this section. Or, of course, I want you to, if you like, try doing the whole scene like that. And I'll also do the pencil drawing, so you'll see that. Okay, so we'll get started in just a second. Hey, welcome. We're just coming back again. We saw the finished painting, so welcome, everyone. Come on right in here. We're going to start working. The landscape paintings are really paintings you'll just always go back to and have a great time with and have lots of fun with. They're kind of more simple as far as sophistication goes. You don't have to do a lot of technical drawing and planning on a landscape painting. They just are kind of a free-flowing, wonderful painting to do when you just maybe are just in a relaxed feeling and in a relaxed mood, and you just want to do a nice landscape painting, and there's not too much that you have to really consider. You're just going to want to lay out your painting first and kind of get an idea of where your land is going to be in your sky. And this is a little tip I always tidbit of information I like to give everybody to help you with laying out the design of your landscape painting. So you could be working from books, art books, you could be working from your phone, a computer, you could be working from photographs, or even outside, outdoors, maybe where you live, you have some places you can paint or draw, and then you can go back to the studio and do some painting. Whatever the case is, usually landscape paintings, you're going to have two scenarios that you most times will work the best for the most part. You'll have either 1/3 land, so 1/3 land, 2/3 sky. Or you may have 2/3 land and 1/3 sky. So those are two really great design principles you can use with your landscapes. And you can always take a picture or something and change the sky and the land ratio either to 2/3 sky, 1/3 land, or the opposite, 1/3 sky, 2/3 land. So you can adjust it. You're the artist. You make your own decisions. You can take a photograph, a picture from a book, whatever it is, something online you see, a nice, beautiful picture you want to paint, like a landscape, even a cityscape. This probably works fine. But you kind of want to have that ratio of 1/3, 2/3, either 2/3 sky, 1/3 land. That's what we're going to do now. Or 1/3 sky, 2/3 land. And the reason for it is usually when you have a painting that looks, if you have a painting that looks, and a design that looks like this, halfway with your information, like maybe there's some buildings, and this is maybe some trees and things, usually half and half, the painting divided in equal half, doesn't look as good. I mean, people do paint like this and do design their paintings like this, and I'm not saying it's terrible, but I think if you really look at a lot of great paintings, you'll notice that I think that most people will agree that they look better if you're using the 2/3 ratio for your land and sky. So either you have a big sky and a little smaller land, or a lot of land and a little bit of sky. That tends to look a little more pleasant, I think you'll find. So you can look through, do some research, maybe go out, check out some photographs of artwork. You can go on the internet and check out landscape paintings, type in landscape paintings, and then you click on that little button that says pictures or photos or images, and then you'll see all paintings and photographs, and you kind of look and you can kind of see what is the most popular layout that you'll see, the most popular design. And I think you'll see most likely it's usually 1/3, 2/3, or the opposite. So you can keep this in your studio whenever you're going to do a landscape painting, or even a cityscape, or seascape, cityscape, landscape painting. You can use this and just take your template and move it down and just put your mark on the paper and say, yeah, this one here we're going to go 1/3 land. And then you're going to go 1/3 land, and you just take your pencil and you just go across lightly and say, okay, that's going to be my land across there like that. Or the opposite would be, you just do the opposite if you want to go with more land and less sky. Hope that helps. These templates are great. And then you just keep this in a folder in your studio. You keep it with you all the time. And then you just always know, yeah, I'm going to want to probably do my 2/3, 1/3 design principle when I'm doing my landscapes, seascapes, even cityscapes. So here we already started. We got our preliminary sketch going here. So this is what we always say on my channel. You'll notice I always encourage everybody, just do a quick preliminary sketch first before you do your final drawing, just so you kind of get the feel for the painting and the design, and you can kind of look and say, okay, yeah, I can kind of see there's some buildings over here. So I'm drawing some buildings in here, and there's some more in the distance. Okay, that's my preliminary sketch. I just get a few of my buildings in, and then there's some trees, so we're going to put some trees in. And not only are we going to do this preliminary sketch, we're also going to talk about pre-mixing your paints, and we'll do that in just a second. And that'll be another huge help for everybody, I think. Most people, most artists will kind of say, yeah, I get a little bit mixing my paints, or sometimes is a hassle. And I totally understand that. When I first started too, I always noticed that mixing my paints and colors and things was always the thing that tripped me up the most, because I'm in the middle of doing a painting and then I'm trying to figure out what colors I'm going to mix. So we're going to tell you how a little interesting technique here to do, so that you don't have to worry about mixing so much when you're painting your painting. You can just keep focused on your painting and getting through it and getting it down in a nice, in a rhythm, so that you can just start and keep working right through your painting. Because that'll help your paintings too. That makes paintings look so much better when there's a rhythm to it. a flow to it, a flow process of something looking good, and that it has a rhythm and a flow and a feel to it, and it's not an issue where you have stop and go all the time. Okay, there we have it. Now, since I'm looking at my sketch here, I'm saying, you know what? This preliminary sketch has turned into my final sketch. I think I'm okay with this. I don't think I need to do another drawing over the top of this. This turns out good. I'm looking at this here, and I see that my trees look good. And just indications of trees. We're going to paint those in with our brush. And then that's good. And then our sky, we're just going to have a nice, easy flowing, free-flowing sky. And then maybe in the foreground here, maybe we're going to have some water here. So we're going to do is kind of just making some water and some grass and weeds and some marshy feeling of along a bay here with some water. So we'll just get that line in of across all the way, and then this way back, and then this way one more time, and that should be good. And then we're going to do some weeds here. Maybe we're going to do some other, maybe we'll do a small tree there. That's over here in the foreground. And some weeds and stuff like that. Up close you'll see weeds and things like that. As you get further in the distance, you're not going to see these weeds and little rocks and twigs and things like that. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. You know, more detail in your foregrounds, fine detail, and then as you go further in your distance, you're not going to be doing much details at all. Like that. And that looks good. All right, so we're going to take a break now. And again, we noticed the first thing we did was let's establish either a 1/3 land, 2/3 sky, or we could do the opposite. We could go with more land and then less sky. We chose the 2/3 sky, as you can see here. 2/3 sky, and then 1/3 land. So that's a nice landscape design. The 1/3 land, 2/3 sky would make a nice big sky with clouds and interesting colors in the sky. Okay, so let's get started with the painting, but first let's take a break. And if you like this channel and you like my videos and you like to learn about watercolors, please feel free to subscribe. On the bottom right hand side, you'll notice there's a subscribe button here on the bottom of the screen. And if you click on that, you know, you'll automatically get my new updates. If you click the notification bell too, where the subscribe button is, that means you'll always get the notification on your YouTube channel. When you're surfing YouTube, you'll always get the notification I've created a new video. So, but anyway, I usually create new videos once a week, and so you'll always know to come back every week maybe and check in and have a fun time with us as we're painting here. So we're always painting watercolors, and we're always learning new things and trying out new techniques and new paintings, and we're having tons of fun here. It's a relaxing atmosphere. We're not too worried about every detail as we go into a painting. We're just learning little bits of things and methods and techniques as we go. And in this one here, we're showing how we can set up our painting in a successful way by always keying in on the 1/3 land, 2/3 sky, or you can even swap that around and go 2/3 land and 1/3 sky, like that, if you'd like. And you'll see many paintings out there, landscape paintings, that use either of these two methods. And we always say this is preferable than trying to go halfway across your page with land and halfway with sky. It tends to look a little better if you have an uneven balance in your ratio of sky to land. Okay, so hey, let's come right back in just a second, and we're going to have a fun time painting this one. And it's going to be also an interesting thing. We're going to talk about mixing colors, preferably before we start painting. So you can have everything in here on the palette ready to go, and then you just go in and do your washes and your painting, and you'll have a fantastic, easy time of doing it. Okay, we'll be right back. Okay, we're picking right back up again, everybody. Thanks again for sticking with us here. We have lots of fun here. We're going to do our painting now. And like I said in the beginning of the video, we're going to show a technique which is really fantastic. We're going to get our brush here. Let's get a couple brushes. Let's see, what do we have here? Okay, we'll use that. So we'll use this here for the sky wash. And I'm going to try to look for a smaller brush for the details. Let's see, what do we got here? Okay, there we go. So we have two brushes. So we'll use this smaller brush. This is a Da Vinci travel brush, Kolinsky Sailboat. And this is a 5 or 4. This is actually a number 4 round brush. And then we have a round brush, the same thing, Da Vinci Maestro, Kolinsky Sable hairbrush, round brush. And this is a 12, I believe. And this is, yeah, a 12 brush. 35. It's a Kolinsky, Tobolsky Kolinsky 35 series, 35 Germany. And that's Da Vinci Maestro, number 12 round brush. Great for big sky washes and doing some of the water. And then we'll use our smaller number 4 Da Vinci travel brush. These are really nice, these travel brushes. You can bring these with you when you go doing some field painting. If you're just going to go out to the park or maybe in the backyard of your house or your apartment, wherever you live, you can do a little outdoor painting and you just put this right in your pocket and you can put it right back in there like that and put it in your shirt pocket. And then when you get out to the site, you're ready to paint. You have a little small palette, mini palette, a little bit of water, and you're set. So I like to use these two, though, to do my paintings in my studio here. So let's, I'll put this over here. Let's start out with our sky wash. Now, usually with a painting like this, we're talking the glazing technique, which is basically, let's get the first glazing on, the water in the foreground and the sky wash first. So what we do is we just take I have fresh, clean water. And I'm just going to wet the paper in some areas, but not everywhere. So I'm going to just splash on some water, fresh, clean water. Don't be afraid, splash it on there. Like that. But not everywhere. Let it be just in a few spots. I'm going to do it more in the center of the painting. I'm going to have that fresh, clean water on there like that. Now, for the glazing technique, you don't have to worry too much. You're just going to be doing some cerulean blue and some French ultramarine blue for your sky wash, and then maybe a little bit of raw sienna too. A little bit of raw sienna, a little bit of that raw sienna mixed with the blue. And that should be plenty. Maybe a little cobalt blue too. So you have cobalt blue, cerulean blue, French ultramarine blue. And you get it to a consistency like that. See how it's plenty of water in there. And then you just start putting that paint on there. I usually like to go solid across the top border like that. And then as we come down closer, like this, leave some white, little bits of white paper here and there. Don't fill it all in. Or you could fill it all in if you want. You don't have to leave little happy clouds. I like to leave little happy clouds there, little white bits of clouds. That looks good. And then as you get to the bottom, you can add a little bit of that raw sienna closer to the bottom of the sky wash, like that. And that's fine. And then you can just flow it right on down, like so. And the raw sienna is a little more toward the, maybe even a touch of orange. The littlest bit of orange, though, not too much. You can see how I have just a touch of orange in there. And that can go along the bottom of your painting, the bottom of the sky. And you saw how I did this. No fuss. Just get it in there and let it be. Don't fuss around. Darker at the top, lighter at the bottom with that little bit of orange and raw sienna at the bottom. Then you just take that, and let's do this. Let's take that cerulean blue. Let's take a little bit of some of the Viridian green. So I'm going to take some Viridian green, like that, and put a little bit of Viridian green quickly in there because I want to use it in the there. I want to use it in the water. So Viridian green and the blue mixture, blue, sky blue, and the Viridian green for the water here. Just like that. Look at that, how beautiful that is. And that's what the glazing technique offers you. Does this make sense? The glazing technique gives you that flexibility that you can get a nice, beautiful wash with tons of water and paint, light washes of paint across your whole painting, and it makes it unified, the whole painting. Then once this dries 100%, then we'll go back in and we'll do our trees, bushes, our buildings, and some more details here with our trees. But as you'll see, this is a wonderful method, the glazing technique, and I use that often. And let's see how this turns out after it dries. So let's take another break, and we'll blow dry this. Or if you have to do some errands and you have to go out for a few hours, you wouldn't have to blow dry. You can just let it dry naturally. It actually is better to let it dry naturally, but I'm doing the video here and I actually want to complete this video. So, but if I did have to go out, I would let it dry naturally. I wouldn't use the blow dryer. But now I'm going to stick to this painting and work full through. So that means I'm going to shut the camera off for a few seconds, blow dry this all nice and dry, and I'll come right back and we'll do the buildings and the trees and all the happy little bushes and weeds and tree limbs and branches and stuff. You'll see we're going to have a fun time doing the rest of this painting. And the key is letting this dry 100% this first wash. You have to do that, otherwise you'll have a lot of problems. So always remember that first wash like we just did must dry 100% before you go back in. Okay? All right, we'll come right back in just a few. All right, so we are back, everybody. We're going to get started here. We're actually going to start painting our dark darks in this painting, and as you can see, this is very dry now. I used my blow dryer, completely dried this painting so that I can put my hands on it like this, rub, and there's no problem. It's all 100% dry. That's the key. Now that we have it to that state of being 100% dry, now we're going to go into our darks. Now, what I like to show is, see how all this puddly, watery, we can't use that now anymore, really. So what we want to do is take our paper towel, dampen it a little bit with some water, and we just want to clean up our palette. And this way we can mix dark darks, and there's no puddles of water in there, because that'll ruin the dark darks we want to mix, the richer, thicker paint. So for this next glazing and next part of the painting, we have to have thick paint. We can't use watery paint mixtures. So that's the main thing you want to focus on at this point, just to kind of keep in your mind this next part of the painting, this next glazing is much more thicker paint, and not much water. We're almost using just nothing but paint without any water, basically. Just the water from the brush when we rinse the brush is about all we need in most instances. So you can see I'm mixing some beautiful, nice, beautiful darks here. And you just, now this is where we're just going to be mixing our colors we need out on the palette like that. And that's pretty good. We have a pretty good range of colors that we can use. We have some tree colors over here, some greens mixed with some blues, cerulean blue, green, a little bit of burnt sienna, that burnt sienna color there just to warm up those greens a little bit. Maybe some blue too, like that. Some burnt umber, brown. So we have some good greens and some darker darks over here, burnt umber, burnt sienna, burnt umber, French ultramarine for really nice darks. Then maybe some blue here. So you mix out your colors like this, and you say, all right, I've got all my dark mixtures all mixed and ready to go. So we're going to start doing our distant houses here. Like this. And then we like to change colors. We don't want to stick with one color going all the way across our buildings. Let's change the colors a little bit. Let's make a little light area too. Sometimes you'll see a light area like that, and then back to a darker spot. And I'm just going right down the buildings here. And then let's see what else we're going to do. Maybe more of a reddish color here. Let's do a little more red like that. That building's a little different there. And then we'll take some greens for our fields. Leave some, maybe some white paper. And we're fusing our foreground and grass and things right with the buildings. And then for our trees, we're just going to take our brush and do little. Best way to do trees with watercolors like this is lots of paint. Lots of paint, burnt sienna, raw umber, maybe a little bit like that. Best thing to do is to dry off the brush on a tissue and then pick up the paint. And then dry off a little more. And then kind of circular scrub on some paint, but try to leave some white paper there within those. And then you want to do some dark areas and light areas. And then there's some. The dark areas are at the bottom of the tree. And then the light areas of the tree are up top where the light is. So we can remember that. And then the roofs, let's make the roofs an orangey clay tile look. Burnt sienna and orange, cadmium orange. And maybe we'll make it more of a thatch roof instead. Let's do raw umber. Like that. And then maybe a grayish roof over here. So you're just working your colors and washes. Maybe this one is more orange for the roof there. And maybe and the key here is try to just, we put out our colors that we needed in the beginning, and then you can add little mixtures to it. So I'm adding a little cerulean blue to the raw umber over here. So you can do little different mixtures of variations on the colors so that you're constantly kind of mixing new colors. And it's not all just the thing you'd want to avoid most of all. The thing we'd want to avoid here, and it's for beginners, we do it all the time. I used to do it myself, is just mix one or two colors and then try to paint the whole area one or two colors. That we can't. We have. That's why I say if we can mix our colors like this on the palette first, get a whole bunch of colors in the pan in our palette here, and you mix them around a little bit, and you see what looks good. If it looks good here, it's going to look good on the paper. So you just mix up your colors beforehand, and then when you go in, then you have lots. Does that make sense? Can you see that? Can you see that? How I have tons of mixtures already, colors and beautiful browns and reds and golds and blues. And then I go in here and it's much easier. I have everything worked out with my paints in the paint palette, and then I can just go in and it's much easier to keep working in my painting, and I'm not worrying about mixing paints. I've already got them kind of mixed in ahead of time. That really helps a lot. I hope you'll do that. Mix up a little bit ahead of the time, and then you'll see you can concentrate on painting. And I make up a really good dark here, French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, burnt sienna. And then I dry off a little bit on the tissue, just so I can get in some of my chimneys here. So I do my couple chimneys on these buildings here. And one over here too. And look at how much progress we've made here. We have all of our buildings pretty much all good, set. And we're going to do some more trees over here. Again, leave some white paper there. Don't fill it all in. Then we do the land, like so. We can make more of a bluish green, maybe some viridian there too, for these distant trees maybe now. We can kind of mix them. So the trees get cooler as they go into the distance. So that's why we'll make them a little more cooler green, which is viridian. Viridian's a cool green, has a lot of blue in it. And that's about it. And we have, and then you can see we have our whole area of interest here on the bottom third of the paper, our houses and our landscape is coming together now. And the next thing we'll do, we'll let this dry a little bit. I think we can actually keep working. Maybe what we'll do is we'll go to maybe even a, let's see what brush we can use that might be in between the I'm going to use a Raphael brush, round brush. And you can use any old brush. You can use a flat brush on this. You can create paintings like this with simple brushes like flat brushes and, you know, inexpensive round brushes like this. So it's not really so much the brushes you're using. It's really just the techniques of, you know, the main technique here is the glazing technique. And we just remember that really light wash first. Let it dry 100%, and then you're coming back in here and doing your darker darks for all your buildings and your trees. And that's really the key to this. And then we'll start to, I'll make some more raw umber. And then we're just going to do the ground here. The marshes and the bit of land that's here. And we're just going to go like that. And we're leaving a little bit of white paper here and there. And another, this here. Just like that. And it's darker at the bottom. And then as we go over here, it's a little lighter, the land and the shoreline, so we just make that a little lighter. And there's some water here and there. And you just leave some, lighter bits of paper. You can kind of see it, that I'm leaving some light white paper here, and then you can go in later and do some blue like that for some water. Like that. Some Viridian green for that nice kind of cool green feeling of the water. Like that. There we go. Now we're really like 90% complete. Let's do maybe a little cerulean blue. And some lighter bushes and trees maybe. And if you want to get a little more sharper, you can go back to your smaller brush now. If you feel you have a couple more details you want to get in, maybe here I need to make this a little more. And then some French ultramarine blue and green. So you can kind of carve out some, put in some windows if you want, and some doors. Just little tiny indications of some windows and doors. That might look good. And then here there's some that's a roof on that building there. And then maybe over here I made some buildings. Maybe I'll just go over that with some greens and browns here, just to, you can sometimes do a little finger painting. You can just tap your finger on the paper with the brush, with the paint, and create some effects. And I think that looks really good. So we're going to take one more break, and then once we're we'll take a quick 5-minute break, relax for a few minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll finish up our details. Maybe we'll do some of these weeds and things in the foreground. And the reason I say take a break is because sometimes when you keep working, do you find this sometimes, that when you keep working, you sort of get fatigued, and sometimes you might like start painting a section you you didn't want to, or you might add something, too much of something, like too much of details, or so always keep a mind keep an open mind as to taking breaks, because when you take a break, you'll take a break 5-10 minutes, then you come back and you won't be painting right away, so you'll look at your painting and kind of just stand back a little bit from your painting and look at it and go, all right, what does it actually need right now? Well, right now I can say this looks pretty good. I think we have all of our buildings across this landscape nicely done, and we have our water done really well here, and we just need a little bit of some of these trees and bushes and twigs, I think, in the foreground, just to set the painting back a little bit, like this middle distance here. We can make that look a little further back if we want by adding some of these more interesting detailed trees and limbs and branches and some little speckles of rocks and things. So let's do that next, but let's just take a quick break and then we'll get started on that. And that should only be about another 5 or 10 minutes of doing some of these details over here on the right and over here a little bit on the left, and we'll be finished, okay? So we'll be right back. All right, we're finishing up, everybody. So let's have a great time here finishing up our painting. The only thing I'm going to add to this is, well, we see that it doesn't matter what type of brush you're using as far as the, we're using round brushes here, so these can be any round brush you want. So it might be a fancier brush, it might be like a student grade brush, doesn't matter. Just as long as we kind of know that the larger brush we're going to use for like the sky washes, where we're using a lot of wash and a lot of water, and then we're using this smaller, very, very fine small brush to do our smaller buildings here and our tree shapes and tree forms. And then for this middle size brush here, round brush, watercolor brush, you know, we might do these foreground areas here. And then the only thing I'm going to add here is a Hake brush, a medium size Ron Ranson Hake brush. I dampen it with a little bit of water first, like that. I dampen it first, and then I just take the hairs and I just kind of do this. Just get the hairs kind of separated like that, and then I can take the hairs of the brush and pick up some any old paint as we're in the palette here, and we're kind of just doing some weeds and things so we don't have to worry too much about the color. And we're just going to do some weeds, and that's all we do, just like that. So we're going to add some more blue, green, and brown. And just a couple like that. And that's good. Just enough to give that little bit of an indication that there's some weeds and things here. And that's fine. Then we're going to take our, maybe we're going to use our, let's see, do I have that close by here? I will use my needlepoint brush to do my tree shapes over here, my tree limbs and tree branches. So that's my needlepoint brush. It has a very, very fine point, as you can see. And that we're just going to brown, blue, green, a little cerulean blue. I load up my brush, and then we just go in and just let the brush do the work. Maybe we need a little bit of water in there just to get the paint flowing a little bit, and then you can see the brush does all the work. And I'm just going to keep the branches flowing to the right like so. Maybe one branch over this way, but most of them going this way. And then a couple more. weeds over here. So this just kind of sets the scene back a little bit with this little bit of branches here, like so. And then we can take a larger brush, and now we can just use our kind of our leftover paints, get some of this on the brush. So you get lots of paint and water on your brush like so, and then you dry it off a little bit on a tissue. And then we can just take our brush like this and kind of just scrub little spots here and there, but not the whole, let's not fill it all in. Just a little bit of, just like that, little tiny bits of and I'm just trying to keep the brush strokes kind of going like this to the right, because we have the branches flowing that way. Then we can add a little more, maybe some French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, a little bit of a darker dark, and then just a couple little dabs of the darker dark here and there. And then maybe a little bit of water to that, just to and I think that's good. And then maybe we could take a little bit of that with some cerulean blue, and we'll do some splashes here. There might be some rocks over here and things, so I'll splash some little spatters of rocks. And we can also, for this, we need very, very thick paint with no water at all. So we'll have to go and do our, clean our palette and dry off any kind of washes or any kind of water that's in that palette. We want to remove that so that the palette's dry. This would be the final things we're doing here, just to really, and then we take some straight paint, basically no water, just straight paint. Get some on our brush, dry off the brush a little bit, and then maybe we'll just see if we can get some, we can drag our brush across the page. Now we need to dry it off a little more. Like that. And maybe some yellow, like so, some gold, yellow ochre, like that. And that's our foreground. Then maybe a little bit of blue, French ultramarine blue, mixed in with that brown. And that would be just under the underside here of our shorelines. So and I think that's perfect. I think we have created a really nice feel for this. Maybe we could really just have a, oh, we can't resist. We want to just do a small sailboat. So we can always do this in the painting. We can create a sailboat. Where are we going to put our sailboat? Maybe over here. Okay, so we just pencil in a little sailboat, and we'll put a little bit of shadow under it, like that. And then maybe we'll just, I'm turning my body to the side so I can get my mast going, like that. And maybe we'll put somebody on there. And there's some people on there. And you can do that. You can add in a little bit of and if you do a brush stroke or something and it doesn't come out great, you can always blot it up with a tissue. Maybe I made that little bit of color on the top of the sailboat and it doesn't look so good. So I can leave that like it is. And then maybe we can add a few more some sails over here, like that. All right, I think that's a perfect landscape with some water, and we have a really fun look to this. And let's peel off the tape and we'll see that it is going to look good. And this wasn't that difficult. This was a real straightforward process. The glazing technique, we do that first light wash, and then after that we do the darker washes carefully, using not too much water, much more paint than water on our brush and in our palette. And that is really the key. And we don't overdo it too much. We only worked on this maybe an hour for the painting portion, and we have a nice look. All right, everybody, thanks again for stopping by and painting along with us here. And again, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Consider hitting the notification bells and subscribing down here on the right-hand side underneath the screen. This way, each week as we're creating more paintings, we're doing everything watercolor for you, the whole enchilada of knowledge and techniques in watercolor. And this way, before you know it, you're going to be doing wonderful paintings and you're going to be very happy with your results, because we cover all the details here, and I'm hoping that you'll keep coming by and having fun with us as we create our new paintings. And if we're not doing landscapes, we might be doing flowers or cityscapes. We might do some figures. So we do everything watercolor, and we do all subject matter. So you'll see something that you like always here on this channel eventually. So it might be a week or two. You might have to wait a week or two, but you can still watch these. If you don't like seascapes or landscapes, that's okay. If you'll still learn the same techniques, and you can practice them anyway. And then you can apply them to any style that you like to paint. Okay, we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.